If a man is thinking about you all day, he won't overwhelm you with attention. In fact, the more he thinks about you, the calmer his behavior becomes. That's the part no one expects, because real mental investment doesn't feel chaotic, it feels steady. Here's what most people miss. When a man can't get you out of his head, he doesn't chase harder, he integrates you quietly into his day. And once you know how to spot this, his behavior suddenly makes perfect sense. If this is helping you understand actions instead of over-analyzing feelings, take a second to like or save this video, because once you recognize these signs, dating becomes a lot clearer. When a man brings you up in moments that have nothing to do with romance, it's one of the clearest signs that you're living in his mind throughout the day. This isn't about flirting or trying to create attraction. It's about mental association. His brain has started linking you to unrelated parts of his life, which only happens when someone occupies consistent emotional and cognitive space. You're no longer compartmentalized as the person I talk to sometimes, but integrated into how he processes experiences. You'll notice this when he references you casually. He might mention something you would find funny while talking about his workday, or bring up your opinion during a conversation that doesn't involve dating at all. This happens because his thoughts naturally pass through you. When people think about someone frequently, their mind starts using that person as a point of reference. It's not intentional. He's not trying to impress you. He's simply thinking the way someone does when another person has become mentally familiar and emotionally relevant. What makes this significant is that men are generally selective with mental energy. If someone isn't important, they don't show up in random moments. A man doesn't unconsciously connect a person to unrelated thoughts unless that person feels emotionally safe and consistent. This is why these references feel effortless rather than rehearsed. They often catch even him off guard. He might not realize why he brought you up, only that it felt natural to do so. This kind of behavior also signals continuity. It means you're not just present during active interaction, but during the in-between spaces of his day. You exist when he's not talking to you, not trying to get something from you, not seeking validation. That's the difference between attraction and attachment. Attraction is situational. Attachment is ambient. It stays with someone as they move through their day. When a man starts doing this, it also reflects emotional comfort. He assumes your presence emotionally without needing to test it. He doesn't worry about whether it's appropriate or strategic. He simply lets you exist in his thoughts and conversations. That ease is what makes this sign so powerful, because it reveals that thinking about you has become automatic rather than effortful. When a man reaches out without a reason or agenda, it's a strong indicator that you're on his mind throughout the day. This kind of contact isn't driven by boredom, loneliness, or the desire to move something forward. There's no hidden motive behind it. He isn't trying to impress, flirt aggressively, or secure reassurance. Instead, the impulse comes from a simple internal cue. You crossed his mind, and he felt comfortable acting on that thought. Men are typically purposeful communicators. When they don't feel emotionally invested, they tend to message only when there's a clear reason, a plan to make, a response needed, or a benefit to gain. Random outreach requires emotional permission. It means he feels connected enough that thinking about you naturally turns into wanting to share something, even if that something is small or seemingly insignificant. A quick check-in, a passing thought, or a casual message becomes a way of maintaining emotional proximity. What's important here is the lack of urgency. His messages don't feel demanding or heavy. They aren't designed to pull attention or provoke a reaction. Instead, they feel light, natural, and unforced. This shows that the connection feels safe and stable in his mind. He doesn't worry about how the message will be received or whether it will disrupt the dynamic. That ease reflects emotional comfort and familiarity. Reaching out without an agenda also signals continuity. He doesn't view communication as something that must lead somewhere immediately. He's not counting responses or measuring effort. The interaction itself has value. This is what happens when someone occupies mental space beyond moments of direct engagement. You exist in his awareness even when nothing specific is happening between you. This behavior also reflects internal inclusion. You've become someone he shares his inner world with, even in fragments. A thought, an observation, or a moment feels more complete when it's shared with you. That's not habit. That's emotional relevance. When a man reaches out without needing anything in return, it's because connection itself has become rewarding. His mind doesn't need a reason to turn toward you because thinking about you already feels meaningful. When a man remembers small details you mentioned once, it's a sign that his attention to you goes beyond surface level interest. These details weren't repeated, emphasized, or reinforced, yet they stayed with him. That only happens when someone is mentally present, even after the conversation ends. His mind didn't discard what you said as background noise. It held on to it because you mattered in that moment, and that sense of importance carried forward. This kind of memory isn't about effort or trying to impress. He didn't make a conscious decision to remember what you said. In fact, he may not even realize that he did. Memory works on relevance, not repetition. When something feels emotionally meaningful, it's encoded more deeply. So when he recalls a preference, a story, or an offhand comment later, it reveals that his brain categorized you as significant, not temporary. These details often resurface naturally. He might reference something you said weeks ago in a casual way, without framing it as proof of attentiveness. That's because for him, it doesn't feel special. It feels normal. You've become familiar enough that details about you integrate into his mental landscape. This is very different from someone who remembers facts because they're trying to perform interest. That kind of recall feels rehearsed and strategic. This kind feels effortless. Remembering small details also shows emotional attunement. He's not just hearing you, he's absorbing you. He notices what matters to you, what excites you, what frustrates you, even when you don't explicitly point it out. That level of awareness comes from sustained mental engagement. His attention doesn't switch off when the conversation ends. It continues quietly in the background. This behavior reflects depth of focus. A man who isn't emotionally invested may enjoy the interaction, but his attention resets quickly afterward. The details fade because they weren't anchored to anything meaningful. When attachment begins, the opposite happens. The mind keeps returning to the person, and each return reinforces memory. When he remembers the little things without trying, it's because you're not just part of the conversation anymore. You're part of his ongoing mental world. When a man's attention stays consistent after conversations end, it reveals that his interest isn't tied to stimulation or immediate interaction. Many people can be attentive while they're actively engaged, but real emotional investment shows up in what happens afterward. When the conversation is over and there's nothing to respond to, no momentum to ride, no emotional payoff in the moment, his focus doesn't disappear. You still exist in his awareness even when you're not actively present. This consistency shows itself in how he resumes connection. He doesn't restart from zero every time you talk. There's continuity. He remembers where you left off emotionally, not just conversationally. His tone feels familiar rather than distant, and there's no sense that you've been mentally shelved between interactions. That's because his mind hasn't moved on from you in the gaps. You haven't become an afterthought that needs to be reactivated. What's important here is that this attention doesn't feel performative. He isn't checking in to maintain appearances or keep options open. It feels natural, steady, and emotionally aligned. He doesn't need a reminder of who you are to him because the emotional thread never broke. This is very different from someone who is only present when it's convenient or stimulating. In those cases, attention comes in bursts and fades quickly once the interaction ends. When a man thinks about you throughout the day, his internal narrative includes you. That means even when he's focused on other things, you're not erased. You're simply not front and center every moment, but you're still part of the background. This creates a sense of emotional reliability. You don't feel like you have to re-earn his interest or wonder where you stand every time you reconnect. This kind of attention also reflects emotional regulation. He's not chasing the high of conversation, nor is he withdrawing when that high ends. His interest isn't dependent on constant engagement. It's stable enough to exist without reinforcement. That stability is what makes it feel grounding rather than confusing. When attention stays consistent after conversations end, it means you're not just someone he enjoys talking to. You're someone his mind continues to hold on to, even in silence, even during the spaces where nothing is being exchanged, even when life pulls his focus elsewhere, even when there's no immediate reason to reach out or stay connected. When a man mentally checks in with you throughout his day, it shows that you've become emotionally relevant beyond moments of direct contact. This isn't something he plans or schedules. It happens spontaneously, in the quiet spaces between tasks. You cross his mind when he's doing something unrelated, and that thought carries a feeling of awareness rather than urgency. He wonders how you are, what you're doing, or how something might land with you, even without acting on it immediately. These mental check-ins often happen without communication. He may not message every time he thinks of you, but the thought itself matters. It means his mind is oriented toward you as someone significant. Emotional attachment doesn't require constant expression. It requires presence. When someone is mentally present, they don't need reminders to remember you. You surface naturally. This also changes how he experiences his day. Events don't happen in isolation anymore. He imagines sharing them with you later or considers how you would react. This is a subtle but powerful shift. It means your perspective has become part of how he processes experiences. You're no longer just someone he interacts with, you're someone he includes internally. Mental check-ins also influence behavior. He becomes more considerate with timing, tone, and decisions. He might delay a message to respond more thoughtfully or choose to reach out when he senses you'd appreciate it most. These choices aren't calculated. They come from an ongoing awareness of you as a real emotional presence in his life. This behavior reflects emotional grounding. He feels secure enough in the connection that he doesn't need to constantly reaffirm it, yet invested enough that you never fully leave his mind. You exist in the background of his day, not as a distraction, but as a point of emotional reference. When a man checks in with you mentally, it means his connection to you doesn't depend on interaction. It lives in his awareness. You're part of how he thinks, how he reflects, and how he moves through his day, even when you're not talking, even when there's silence, even when nothing is required of either of you. When a man slows down his responses to be thoughtful rather than distant, it signals a deeper level of emotional engagement. This kind of pause isn't about playing games, creating mystery, or withholding attention. It's about care. His mind is active in the space between receiving your message and replying to it. He's considering how his words will land, what tone feels right, and how to respond in a way that reflects what he actually feels, rather than reacting impulsively. This shift often confuses people because we're used to equating speed with interest. Fast replies are seen as enthusiasm, while slower ones are often misread as fading attraction. But when emotional attachment is present, urgency gives way to intention. He doesn't want to be careless. The connection matters enough that he doesn't treat communication lightly. He knows his words carry weight now, and that awareness naturally slows him down. You'll notice that even when replies take longer, the quality improves. His messages feel considered, relevant, and emotionally aligned. He's not sending fillers to keep the conversation alive. He's responding because he wants to engage meaningfully. That difference is subtle but important. Distance feels empty. Thoughtfulness feels present even in silence. This behavior also reflects emotional regulation. Instead of reacting from stress, distraction, or mood, he takes a moment to center himself before responding. That pause protects the connection. It prevents unnecessary misunderstandings and emotional misfires. When a man is invested, he becomes more careful not to damage something he values, even unintentionally. Slowing down also means he's integrating you into his emotional rhythm rather than treating you as a quick hit of validation. He doesn't need immediate back and forth to feel connected. The bond feels stable enough that he trusts it can hold space between interactions. That trust is a hallmark of emotional attachment. What makes this especially meaningful is that the pause isn't absence. You don't feel ignored or dismissed. You feel held in mind. There's a sense that even when he's not responding, you're not forgotten. His attention hasn't vanished. It's simply turning inward, choosing care over impulse, choosing thought over reaction, choosing emotional responsibility over immediacy. When a man subtly adjusts his routine around moments with you, it's a sign that you've become part of his internal priorities. This doesn't look like grand sacrifices or dramatic rearrangements. It's quiet, almost invisible. He doesn't announce it, and he may not even consciously register that he's doing it. Yet his day begins to bend slightly in your direction, because emotionally attached people instinctively make room for what matters. You might notice he times his messages differently. He reaches out when he knows you're free, rather than when it's most convenient for him. He remembers when you're usually busy or tired and adapts without being asked. This isn't about pleasing you or trying to earn approval. It's about emotional attunement. His awareness of you now extends into how he structures his time and energy. This adjustment also shows up in availability. He doesn't suddenly become endlessly free, but he becomes more intentional. He creates space where there wasn't any before. Even in a busy schedule, he finds small windows to connect, because connection with you has moved from optional to meaningful. When a man isn't emotionally attached, he fits you into his life only when it's easy. When attachment forms, ease becomes less important than presence. What's important is that these changes feel natural, not forced. He doesn't complain about making time. He doesn't frame it as effort. That's because emotionally, it doesn't feel like effort. It feels like alignment. His internal priorities have shifted, so his external behavior follows without resistance. This kind of routine adjustment also signals future orientation. He's not just reacting to the moment, he's thinking ahead, even in small ways. He considers how his actions today affect the connection tomorrow. That awareness is rooted in emotional continuity. He expects you to remain part of his life, so he behaves in ways that support that expectation. When someone isn't emotionally invested, their routine is rigid. It revolves around themselves, and others are temporary add-ons. When emotional attachment develops, rigidity softens, flexibility appears. The presence of another person becomes something to accommodate rather than tolerate. When a man starts quietly reshaping his routine around you, it's because you're no longer outside his life. You're already inside it. When a man's curiosity about you is continuous, not situational, it's one of the clearest signs that he's emotionally attached. This isn't casual interest that flares up only during dates or conversations. It's a quiet, persistent attention that follows you through daily life. He wants to understand you, not to manipulate, impress, or control, but because your thoughts, feelings, and experiences genuinely matter to him. His mind keeps returning to you, analyzing, remembering, and anticipating even when you're not present. Continuous curiosity shows itself in small ways. He remembers things you never emphasized, like a favorite book, a passing comment, or an offhand joke. He notices patterns in your behavior, moods, and preferences, not to report them, but to understand you better. This awareness is subtle but consistent. Unlike casual fascination, which is fleeting and surface level, ongoing curiosity requires sustained attention. He's invested enough to care about the nuances of who you are. This kind of curiosity also drives his behavior. He asks thoughtful questions, follows up on past conversations, and engages in ways that show he's paying attention even when the connection is low pressure. He doesn't wait for a dramatic moment to show interest. Instead, he integrates understanding you into the rhythm of daily life. That consistency, paired with genuine attention, is what sets emotional attachment apart from casual attraction. Another aspect is that continuous curiosity reflects emotional presence. He isn't thinking about you in isolation. He's thinking about how you fit into his world, how you experience life, and how he can support or connect with you meaningfully. This doesn't require constant communication. It exists quietly in his awareness. Finally, this ongoing curiosity strengthens attachment because it signals that he values knowing you beyond the immediate or obvious. It's not about novelty or excitement, it's about significance. When a man's curiosity is steady and integrated into his day, it demonstrates that you occupy a real place in his emotional and mental landscape, which is one of the most reliable signs of genuine emotional investment.